One of the things I really love about what I do is community feedback. So I just recently released some code here on Discord, and this is the Infinity Code OG edition. And there was loads of good ideas floating around, and I love that. I love the fact that there's engagement and there's really good ideas. And I say to every single one of those to test them. And this is what this video is all about. So you may be pleased to know that I created a simulation version of that code that if you didn't see it, I'll put a link to the previous video if you don't know what I'm referring to. But basically what I've done, I've recreated the code in simulation. And I'm going to talk through that code today because I don't want you guys to be scared of it. There's lots of people in my community that are not that strong in coding. But what I've done, I hopefully have coded it in such a way that it is actually quite easy, to play around and test new ideas. And this was what this video is about, because I just want to walk through some of the features of the code that I hope you'll find useful. So here's the code here. And before I go live with this video, I will also put this under the community code as well. I'll probably attach it to this. So there'll be two versions of the code. There'll be this original one, plus there'll be a simulation as well. Now to run this code, I've put in the instructions here some very basic things. If you haven't done this before, you're going to learn very quickly that this is probably the best way to test things. Because one of the things that's going to jump out when you do test this is the speed of it. If you want a true reflection of how this is really going to play out in simulation compared to how it would play out in the casino, this is by far, in my opinion, one of the best ways to test it. Because it's the sheer quantity of testing that you can do in a really short period of time. You will see. So prerequisites. If you're going to run this code, this can run on Windows, Linux, Mac. Don't care. It's agnostic. It's written in JavaScript. But in order to run JavaScript code, you need to install Node.js. There's a link there to Node.js. And there's downloads, installers for Linux, Mac, Windows. And one very small thing, because we're using cryptography to create the randomness, exactly what the casino does. We'll go into that into detail in a moment. We need to install something called crypto. So you need to, once you've installed Node.js, you just open up a command prompt and you just type in npm install crypto. And that is it. That is all you need to do. And once you've downloaded this code, all you do is type in the word node and then the name of the code. And then that's all you need to do. So this is replicating exactly what the live code is running, which is what I'm running at the moment. And just to show you that, and again, please don't be daunted by the code. It looks way more scarier than it really is. If you're not from a coding background, don't be afraid, because if you mess it up, just re-download it, okay? The best way you're going to learn is to download it, break it, try to fix it, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's all in simulation. You can't break anything. So the only bits that you really, really need to pay attention to is the start balance, or the balance. So because it's simulated, we're going to simulate a balance. Now I've put 500 in there as an example, but what we really plan is with this start balance. This start balance is important because we're saying that the start balance is 10. And the reason there is a difference between the start balance and the balance is because one of the things we're going to be simulating in this code is the recovery pot. The idea under simulation, you can't really simulate the recovery of a balance using a recovery pot, but what you can do is inflate how much you've got on your balance to begin with, which includes the recovery pots. Does that make sense? But we're fundamentally playing is if we've got a 10 balance. Here we're defining a number of bets we're going to run. So if you wanted to run a simulation for much longer, I said that 1,680,000 bets represents 1 week's worth of running, based on the maths that the average bets per hour that you're going to get if you was to really play is around 10,000 bets per hour. That's not precise. Sometimes I get 11,000, sometimes I get 12,000 bets per hour, and some are slightly under. But generally, it's a good starting point. And if I want to simulate an entire week's worth of running, for example, I would put 1,680,000. So if you wanted to change that to just 1 day, for example, let's do that. Just copy and paste the 1 day value there. We save that. So that it's going to do 240,000. So I've worked out what it would be for 1 day, what it would be for 1 week, and what it would be for 1 month, and what it would be for 1 year. Now, if you're going to test any strategy in Anger, I highly recommend you're going to run it for an entire year simulation. In my mind, if you have a strategy that can survive for 1 year, you've determined what you're going to put in the recovery pot by determining what the balance is going to be, and then you can simulate the hell out of this. Does that make sense? Because if you've got any questions on this, just post them in Discord. Now, moving down, we're defining what the base chance is going to be. So it's going to be 50% win chance. And as per the other video, we set the increase on loss. So this is the part where we're saying if we define that the win chance is 50% and we know that only pays at 1.98%, we can cover that 1% edge by increasing the amount that we add on every loss to 102.05%. It's a bit weird to look at, but that's just the way that JavaScript does it. Okay, just take my word for it. Here we're determining the play balance. Now, the play balance is the key variable that is used within the real code as well. So we're taking this 10 start balance and then we're dividing that by 20. And this is in line with the spreadsheet that I put out with this. So, and then the base bet is based off 1/1000th of your play balance, which in this instance is going to work at 0.000, so 3 zeros, 5 of 1 TRX, which is exactly how my system is set up. And here we're saying that the next bet is base bet. And we're going to start at stage 2. So if you want to do any experimentation, know that stage 2 is the profit building stage. This is where it makes 50% of the start balance as profit before it moves into stage 1. So here I've defined the variables where it's going to say when I'm going to switch between stage 1 and when I'm going to switch between go back from stage 1 into stage 2. Wager target is no longer needed. I'm going to take that out, and I've set the vault to 0. Now the rest of the variables you don't need to touch. Let's go right back to the very beginning. So there's a couple of things that are important here. These are the global settings, and these global settings are going to be important for you. So the first one is whether to use a random server seed or not to use a random server seed. Okay, and you think to yourself, what is the benefit of that? And I tell you what, there is a really, really good reason for having this in here. Say, for example, you've got this strategy, you have an idea. If you set this to be false, so it does not use a random server seed, for example, every time you run this code, you will always get the same server seed, same client seed, and same start nonce position, which means that your bet data, the results of those bet data, will be identical every single time you run it. Now, this is good if you've got an idea and you want to test it and you want to tweak it to see whether there is any improvements over that. Well, you sure as hell want to run that against the same set of bet outcomes. Does that make sense? Think of it as an opportunity to be able to rewind time. But for the moment, I'm just going to keep that to true. So I just want to keep it as it's not of relevance to me, but it's quite a useful feature, and that's the reason it's in there. Now, the other one, which is what you're most likely to use the most, the next two you are probably going to use the most. So the first one is debug mode, and the second one is the delay when you're in debug mode. So if we set this to true, and again, when you're testing ideas, always run with this debug mode set to true. And the one underneath is how long are we going to put in as a delay between each bet. Now, 1,000 is 1 second, so it's in milliseconds. So we're close to running this. So if I save this and I run this, and I've now got debug mode enabled, what we can do, because there's a 1 second delay between each bet, I can analyze these and have a real thorough look, just making sure that the game is acting in a way that I predicted it's going to run. I mean, the last thing you want is the simulation to not be reflective of actually how the game is going to play out if you as if you were really gambling. So you need to pay very close attention to the minuscule detail here. And what I'm looking at for is one is to verify. Let's stop this so we can see this. First off, when it's green, was that truly a win? So in this instance, we said bet number 32, the result was 95.1. We were betting at 50% win chance, and the bet high was true, which in this instance, we would have been above 50, which means that would have definitely been a win. Likewise, we go the one underneath it, bet 33, we said bet high equals false, which means we bet low, and the result was 63.01, which was above 50. So we knew we definitely failed that. So we know straight away the mechanics of the game is working. The next bit is to make sure that we got the balance control right, and we've sort of stopped at a really good stage here because we're at stage 2, and we said that we expect to wager 0 every bet until we get 5 losses. So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 5 losses, go in heavy, 11 times the base bet. 11 times the base bet is 0.111. That's exactly where I expected it to be. And then a 0.0055 exactly where I want it to be. And then we're basically adding 102.05%. Now I've got it to show only the last 4 decimal places. And I'll show you how you can tweak that if you wanted to show more. And we can see it's doing exactly what it's meant to do. Now the other thing that I'll be looking at while I'm here as well is would you believe it, my computer decided to crash. It blue screened on me. Right, I had to rerun that. So the other thing I'll be looking at for is the wager. Is making sure that's also going up as well. Keep an eye on the profit. Keep an eye on the balance. Tells you the current streak. It's measuring the worst streak as well. These are all things that I'm going to be looking at in minute detail. And this is one of the reasons why you would run it in debug mode, because you're verifying the code is behaving in exactly how you want it. Now what you can do to go beyond this, I've got some under here. It says it's checking if it's in debug mode. And I've commented out some things that could be potentially useful. So one is, if you want to know what the current server seed is, if you want to know what the current client seed is, and you want to know what the nonce position is at, just uncomment then. And then when we rerun the code, it will start to show obviously what the server seed, the client seed, and the nonce position is. And as you can see, they're all random. And we can use this. And I encourage you to do this because this will give you some credence knowing that this game has exactly mirrored how the casino works. What this code has done is fundamentally is recreate the game dice exactly how the casino do it. And it is exactly 100% provably fair. If you took that server seed and you took that client seed and you made a note of the nonce position, and if you go onto the casino's validity checker, I will guarantee you the result of that would be 13.66. Should we do that? Should we check it? 1 second. Okay, on the casino, we go to fairness, we go to calculation, we pick the game dice. Let me populate out the server seed, client seed and nonce position. I'll be right back. Okay, what I've done, I've taken the bottom one there, server seed, client seed, nonce position 86276, 86276, result 50.62, result 50.62. If we move down a nonce position, that should say 38.27, 38.27. If that doesn't fill you with confidence that this code is simulating 100% what the casino does, and it is 100% provably fair, then I've done a really bad job in coding. What I've done, I've replicated exactly how the casino works. I've taken the exact same formula. They use HMAC SHA-256 to take a combination of the server seed, client seed and a nonce position to create what we call the raw output. That is exactly the same system used on every single Stake Originals games. That raw output can be then used to calculate the game events. And if we go to the game events, this is how they calculate out the results from the game event. Okay, so it's a byte to float calculation, and I'm replicating that fully in the code here. And this is how I'm able to exactly replicate what the casino does. The complexities you don't need to worry about. It's here in the code. This is the byte generator, which is exactly what we saw on the website now. And here is calculating at the raw results, which is exactly, when we saw that line just now, that's what it's doing. Now, it's technically possible. You can simulate any of the Stake Originals games. The formula they use is pretty well documented. Where it gets slightly complicated is where they use a cursor. The cursor's not used in DICE. It's just set to 0 in this game. But other games like Dragon Terror, you've got the complete game event outcome calculated in one nonce position on the client seed and server seed. And the way it does that, it uses a formula. It uses the cursor to calculate each round, but it's the same. The bet hasn't incremented. Anyway, I don't want to go into that in this. That's probably be a discussion for another video. So once we're kind of happy with where we are, the game mechanics is working out exactly as expected. I'm going to comment out those server seed, client seed and nonce position because it makes the screen too messy. So I'm going to come back down to here and just put in 2 /, comments them out. And to speed things up, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change the debug delay down to 1 millisecond. Just for the moment. So we can see it running a bit faster. And we should be able to see it switch between stage 1 and stage 2. One of the things that's going to determine when it does switch over is when the profit gets above 0.25. I know what that calculation will be. Let's keep an eye on it, and we should see that switch over to stage 2. Well, it's getting close. I'm bringing you back, and almost it's gone to stage 1. Now, I've already tested this, so I already know this works. But for your own sanity, these are the sorts of levels and checks that you need to go to, especially if you're making changes. And don't be afraid to make changes. Now that we're happy, I can stop this. I can go back to the code and I can turn this debug mode off. So if we set it to false, and this is where you're going to run this way most of the time. Okay, this debug delay has basically been ignored. I'm going to put it back to 1000 milliseconds. But you see the difference. You see the difference. We've set the total bets to 240,000. We've turned debug mode off and we're going to rerun the code. How quick do you think it's going to run through 240,000 bets? Right, 3, 2, 1, go. Done. 1 second. Less probably. It has a bet rate. It's done exactly the same, but it's just flowing through those bets at an astronomical rate. At this instance, it said 385,233 bets a second. I'm not quite sure how it calculated that because it did less than that. But anyway, we can see the total number of bets, the total profit, what the current balance is, and how much been wagered, what the worst loss streak was, and what the largest bet place was. This max balance drawdown I'm going to remove before I release this code because that was for some other test that I was running. I'll probably just comment that out. But what a difference. What a difference. Because when you run at that speed, you can test things. Now, one of the things I do know, when I'm running live, I get on average sort of 1,500 to 1,600 TRX wagered per week. So if I set the total bets to 1 week, I save this and I run this, and again, 1,680,000 bets. How long do you think it's going to take? 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. 1 million. It's done the total bets of 418,000 bets per second. But more importantly, there's a huge amount of validation that goes on at this stage. Exactly where I expected it to be. That wager is absolutely spot on. I'm particularly looking at what the highest loss streak was and what the largest bet was placed. So while you're here, there's a couple of things that I'm going to change right now so you can see me working with this code. There's something I'm not happy with. And I'm not happy with the fact that it showed me that the highest loss streak is -19, yet the largest bet placed was 1.5277. Now if we look through that, in accordance to the spreadsheet, it is betting the exact right amount. And if we did display this, and I may well do that, adjust these so it shows the full 8 decimals, just to give you the confidence that the betting is exactly matching through to what we predicted in Excel. I like literally 8 decimal places precision, because if it's out slightly, when you get into the sort of higher depths of long loss streaks, those numbers out can be wildly out. So this is why it's so important that you need to be absolutely spot on. So I'm not happy that says minus 19 when in reality that was minus 14, and I know the exact reason why is because I'm keeping a track of the worst loss streak not only in stage 1 but also in stage 2 as well. So realistically we only need to capture the maximum loss streak in stage 1. So I'm going to make some changes to the code to only keep a track of what the max loss streak is in stage 2, because stage 1 is irrelevant. So bear with me. Let me make that change and I'll bring you back. Okay, I've made the change. I've adjusted the code so it now only keeps a track of the highest loss streak in stage 2 only, and now this is truly reflective. As I said, we're not interested in stage 1. You can't crash on stage 1. And I've adjusted it so it displays the results in 8 decimal places. So we could say minus 16, and I want this to exactly match through. Minus 16 should be 6.236648. 6.23664806 to the 8th decimal point correct. Now you may think that's completely bloody anal, and I'm telling you it is not. That fills me again with complete and utter reassurance that the code for simulation is exactly matching through. 1, how it intended to. 2, exactly how the casino can play it, and it's 100% provably fair. Listen guys, if you find this stuff useful, please smash that like button for me, please. You know what it's like. The YouTube stuff happens when people like, share, comment, trying to get my YouTube channel up. It's not bloody easy. It's not easy. All I ask, if you find this useful, please smash that like button. Just do what you can to help me. Just be grateful. You don't have to, but it would be nice. Now we're going to get into some really interesting stuff, because now that we have this code, we can do things with it and we can test ideas. And before I move on, version control is very important, guys. Amongst the community, I see it a lot. People take the code, they make changes, and they don't update the version number. And if you don't update the version number, my God, you end up in a bloody mess. Okay, so it just takes a second to update the version number so everybody knows which version of the code you're working on. What I do recommend is most people tend to put their own initials at the end of it so we know who's working with what, just to stop it. Maybe just create your own version, even if it's just, say, putting your Discord ID in there. Doesn't matter. Now, one of the ideas there's a few ideas I want to test, and this code allows me to test those ideas. So one idea I've got in my mind, why don't I just use stage 1 only? What does it look like? What does it look like if I just want to wager? Okay, I don't want to risk anything, because remember I said you can't really crash out. So if I said, for example, here, I only ever want it to stay in stage 1, well, simple. I could just change the code here to say you start in stage 1, and then in the do bet, which is analyze bet here, where it's set, this section here I could just completely comment out. Where it switches to stage 2, I could just put comments in front of it. That means that code will never run, which means it will never switch stage. It starts in stage 1 and there's no mechanism for it to switch out of stage 1. Let's see, on 10 TRX, what does that look like? Could it survive a week? It's wagered the same amount. But let's up the base bet. We're doing 50-50. We did lose. Man, we had a balance of 500. This, as it stands, is on par with running at 99% win chance. Probably not the best idea. Let's rerun it. Yeah, quite consistent actually. Yeah, so it proves to me it was a bad idea. But do you know what? I've had no way of testing that until now. I've written the code. I'm definitely not going to run that code. But the beauty is the fact that we can test these ideas out. Absolutely no risk. So I'm just putting it back to its original. I'm going to start back in stage 2. I'll save it and then I'll rerun it. All good. All good. Exactly the same as last time. Now in reality, what I would really do with this code is I would stress test it. And the way that I stress test it is by running it for an entire year, which is 86 million bets. And the beauty is we can do this. Now if you run this, it's going to be truly reflective of how it's going to play out in the real world. So to stress test this, now I play with 10 TRX balance, 205 as a recovery pot, and an extra 1,500 as a secondary recovery pot, which if you did the maths, that'd be 1,715. So I could put my balance in there as if my recovery pots were in the balance, but knowing that it's only going to play as if I've got a 10 balance. I'm hoping this all makes sense. So I'm going to run it, and this is going to take longer, but this is going to simulate an entire year's run. This would tell us it's really going to run like when you're running at 160 bots, when you've got 1.8 million bets per hour. This is going to tell you what you really need to know. I'll be back. Okay, that completed. You can see here, it took 205 seconds to simulate an entire year's worth of gambling. 86,400,000 bets in 205 seconds. It wagered 80,630. The balance has pretty much stayed the same. The worst loss streak is 21. And the largest bet place was 210 TRX. Now we don't have to stop here. We could add another 0 here. So this time we're doing 864 million bets. Now you may think this is crazy, but this is where the length that you need to go to. Now we've seen that 1,715 balance, which is in effect 10 start balance, 205 recovery pot plus 1,500 TRX, wasn't really needed. But I suspect if we're going to run this over 10 years, we've got to ask ourselves the question, what is the worst that can happen? And the worst can happen is we can test that. We can just give this a crazy balance, because it doesn't matter what balance we give it, because now we're testing something very, very different. And again, it's the power of the code. 10 years simulation, 864,000 bets. And this time, we're not testing to see whether the strategy is going to survive 10 years. I don't think any strategy will survive 10 years. But we're asking ourselves the question, what is the worst that could possibly happen? So this is going to take a lot longer to run. We saw we got an average of 420,000 bets per second. So it won't take that long, but it will take some time. So I'm going to run this, and I will definitely bring you back, because what we're checking is what the worst that could possibly happen, and I'll bring you back. Okay, that finished. It took some time. 864 million bets, close to 8 trillion. It took 36 minutes. 36 minutes, which was basically total time 2,178 seconds to simulate 10 years continuous non-stop running. And the results were very, very interesting, because I would have not have known this number. It was better than I expected. The worst loss streak was -23. The largest bet place was 857. Apologies, 857. We can compare that to the spreadsheet. There we go. Again to the 8th decimal place. So the fake balance I put in was woefully overkill. We could have coped and survived the 10 years on my first setup with 1,500 as a secondary recovery pot. You know, you're never going to find answers to like this any other way. You could run it again, you could run it multiple times, you could run it for 100 years. If you really, really want to stress test things, there is simply no other way to do this. I mean, this tool allows you to ask yourself questions. And if you don't know the answer to that, test it, bloody test it. Come in here. It's not too difficult to change the code. Come up with new ideas, new concepts. Now, what that's telling me in some shape or form is that perhaps I'm being too cautious with this code, and maybe I could squeeze a bit more out of it. Maybe I could be able to get more wagering out of it. And again, offline, I won't do it on video now. I can play with this. I can test ideas out. For my own personal curiosity more than anything else, what I intend to do is I get a simulation and I run it for a week because it gives me the sort of metrics that I'm interested in. And then when I want to stress test it, I test it for 1 year. And I always say that if you've got a strategy that can last 1 year continuously without busting, then it's a bloody good strategy. And if then when I want to test the extremes, I do put an excessively large balance like I did just now, and I stress test the hell out of it. 10 years is probably going to give you a realistic figure. And if you really want to push it even further, just go to full 10 years. It would take 10 times longer, but hey, what the heck. Now, if I could save one person from getting their fingers burnt, I am happy, okay? I'm here for you guys. I'm for the players. So this code, if you want it, you're going to have to join Discord. In the pinned comment of this video, there will be a link to my Discord server, and the code is going to go there. Doesn't cost anything. It's completely free. Just need to join. Come and find like-minded people. So in my Discord, there is a section called Community Code. Here, this is where I put the code. If you want this is where you'll find it. Like I say, it's completely free. Anybody can get access to this. And now I'm going to hand the code over to you guys. Let's see what great ideas you can come up with. If you need any help, I'm here. Reach out to me. You'll get hold of me in Discord. If you're struggling with the code or there's an idea that you can't quite work out how to do, I'm here to help you. So that ends the video. Guys, girls, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found this useful. I look forward to speaking to you in Discord, and I will speak to you all again very, very soon.